WVU Parkersburg, where we plan to allow our president to give you an update on our response to the COVID-19 situation. Dr. Gilmer.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to introduce Donna Smith, Chair of our Board of Governors, Elena Segsworth, President of our Student Government, Executive Vice Presidents Alice Harris and Chad Crumbaker, Vice President and Chief of Staff Brady Whipke, Vice President and President of our Foundation, Dr. Tori Jackson, and here in spirit, Vice President Steve Smith, who is otherwise engaged today. Thank you all for being with us. I came here today to speak truth to power. You see the word president behind me today, so perhaps you think that I'm the one who has the power. If you do, you have that inverted. I have some authority that has been ceded to me by all of you, but you, in fact, hold all of the power. I hold the position as your president only in trust, and yours is the trust in which I hold it. I am entirely replaceable. None of you, however, are replaceable. When I say the word trust, what I mean isn't that we always have to agree. What I mean is that we always have to be brave enough to tell each other the truth, and you have to believe that I have your best interest at heart at all times. I will accept that definition of truth and hold myself to it. What I want to say today is in no way intended as a political statement. It's intended as an ethical statement which respects all sides, even those who might disagree. You want and you deserve some straight answers that are not moving targets. And that's what I came here to give you today, the only answers that I can give you. This spring, we were all caught off guard when we had to change everything that we did because of COVID-19 on a week's notice. Today, we're going to reclaim that narrative as a community and take it back from the pandemic and begin telling our own story in a more positive way. It's important that we frame the decisions that I'm going to share with you today, and this framing is facts, not opinions. On July the 10th, West Virginia had the highest transmission rate of COVID-19 of any state in the nation, after months of being in the best tier of states. Today, we have a 5.79% daily positive rate in West Virginia, after a long period of rates between 2 and 3%. So far, 99 West Virginians have died and 4,657 cases have been reported statewide. The United States has reported 77,255 new cases of COVID-19 yesterday, the highest one-day total yet, with 943 dead Americans in one day's time, according to Johns Hopkins University. In the United States, 138,000 people have died of the virus. Medical authorities are not predicting that this pandemic will approach the 1918 flu pandemic, which infected 500 million people and killed more than 50 million people worldwide, but they are admitting that it has that potential. I didn't come here to frighten you today, but it's important that our decisions are framed with facts. Let's put some names and faces of those who have died to this terrible disease. Joshua Bush, a 30-year-old student at the University of South Carolina. Trevor Lee, a 27-year-old student at Utah Valley University. Juan Garcia, a 21-year-old student at the Pennsylvania State University. At the City University of New York, 38 employees have died. And that's particularly important to us because, as you know, we are in partnership with our Ascend program with the City University of New York. We have not been in face-to-face contact with these people since the pandemic started, but we share their pain as our partners. We offer our sincere sympathy to all the families of all the people whose lives have been lost. And folks, this is one list that I pray WVU Parkersburg will never be on. When I came to you, I made you a promise that we would have a season of love at West Virginia University Parkersburg. And no, in a serious moment such as this, I'm not going to sing you the song. But students, faculty, employees, community members, how can I look you in the face as your president and tell you that I love you and then put you in harm's way by bringing 1,000 people or more into our physical facilities every day this fall? With that being said, I announce today that we will have a virtual fall semester at WVU Parkersburg in 2020. We will practice technology-enabled instruction. Do I believe that this has the potential to harm enrollment? Yes, I do. Do I believe that this has the potential to harm our financial bottom line in the short term? Yes, I do. Do I expect every one of you to agree with my decision? No, I do not. The bottom line is I must live with my own conscience, and I cannot be a person who places any value higher than the value of a single human life. We make no comparisons and no judgments about what any of our sister institutions in West Virginia or nationwide might do, what decisions they might make. This is a local decision. We will, of course, respect and follow any guidance that comes from our governor or our chancellor, and I will continue to respect the authority of our local board of governors. I took counsel from a number of people in making this decision, but ultimately, right or wrong, it's my decision, and I take responsibility for it. Early next week, we will begin discussions with all stakeholder groups about the specifics that this decision implies. We will follow the leadership of our faculty and our students about the best ways to implement technology-enhanced instruction. We will follow the leadership of our staff and our students about the best way to serve the frontline needs of our students while keeping everyone as safe as possible. We will make some exceptions for our technical programs such as welding and for some of our science, healthcare, and education programs which have lab and field experience components. We will open computer labs on both campuses on a limited basis because we recognize that access to internet in rural areas is one of the primary challenges of virtual instruction. We will continue our phased reopening of our facilities to register, advise, teach, and serve our students, but in a slow and safe way, emphasizing the mandatory wearing of masks and social distancing. Students, I say to you that we will be here for you and with you to ensure the best possible learning experience. Staff, we will redesign our workspaces to provide you with the most safety possible. Faculty, we will make our Zoom rooms and other tools that you need to do your job available. And I could not thank all of you more than I thank you for the very best that you've made of this difficult situation so far. It's been amazing to sit back and watch the creativity and the stick-to-itiveness of this community. Parents, spouses, families, I promise you this, trust us with your loved ones as students for the fall semester, and we will do all within our power to keep them safe while providing a high-quality education. This month, I'm beginning my third year as your president. Together, we have achieved much positive momentum, and we mean to keep it going forward. We are in a strong fiscal position as an institution, strong enough to withstand short-term financial challenges. We have stabilized and increased enrollment in 2019-2020 after 7 years of an enrollment decline. We have put a bold new enrollment plan for the long term in place, and summer enrollment is up 10% in the middle of a pandemic. This is, however, a major bump in the road, a mighty big bump, but I still see the road on the other side of it, and I believe that you do as well. I'm not one to impose my religious views or my upbringing on other people. I respect every religious tradition and those who decide and choose not to subscribe to any religious tradition at all, but I don't apologize for my rearing. My grandmother taught me the story of Esther from the Bible, and it remains one of my favorite stories today. It was said about Esther that who knows but that you have come to the kingdom for such a moment as this. I am far from a biblical figure, but I do believe that leaders are called to moments. I am not omnipotent. I am very far from it. I cannot promise you that I will keep the virus from coming to our campus. No one can. I can promise you this, however, that my most solemn responsibility is to keep you as safe and healthy as I possibly can. And this decision is a reflection of that promise. Much more specific guidance about the implementation of this plan will be coming to you beginning next week. And now I'm going to recognize the chair of our Board of Governors, Donna Smith, to make a statement, the president of our student government, Elena Segsworth, to make a statement, and then we will begin the process of taking any questions from the media, taking any questions from members of our community, and hearing your comments. Chair Smith. You're on mute, Chair Smith.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Thank you, Dr. Gilmer, for those inspiring and heartfelt words. I don't think anyone could have said it better. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. While we would all like to return to the days of in-person classes and on-campus student engagement, it is the mission of West Virginia University of Parkersburg to provide accessible, life-changing educational opportunities in a safe and supportive environment. And it certainly has been challenging to determine what that safe and supportive environment should look like when classes resume in August. As you've heard today, Dr. Gilmer and his team have reevaluated the situation based on current information and made the decision that we will move to technology-enabled learning for the fall semester. Announcing this decision now allows our faculty, staff, and students to appropriately prepare for the start of classes 1 month from today. As chair of the Board of Governors, I would like to thank Dr. Gilmer and all of his team for their continued commitment to our mission and the health and well-being of our WVUP family in this challenging time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Donna. President Segsworth, if you'll unmute yourself, and we would like to hear what you might like to say.
Our school has the ability and the capacity to make virtual learning this semester very successful and very enriching. And in light of that, it makes so much sense to do virtual learning and to limit our involvement with each other in person. This is a major step in keeping the virus away from our community, and that's the main goal.
Thank you very much, Elena. Dr. Jackson will serve as our moderator, and Tori, I'm now prepared to take any questions from the media or from the community.
All right, we can start with the media. We do have a couple of questions from the community, but if any of the media representatives have a question, would you like to unmute yourself and ask? All right, in the meantime, I'll go ahead and share some questions that are appearing on Facebook or YouTube. And they really, a lot of them are glad that the computer labs will have some opening, and they would like to make sure that that continues because it's difficult for a lot of students. And then there are questions about tutoring and CLEP and other tests, and will those be available in any in-person format?
It took us a long time to get to where we are now to make the big decision. After I heave a sigh for making and announcing that big decision, we will immediately turn ourselves to working out the detailed answers to all of your questions and sharing those answers with you in short order. I do recognize that the access to internet capacity in rural communities is a challenge. I don't just recognize that as a West Virginian now, I recognize that from an entire lifetime spent in rural communities. So we recognize the need to make the internet available, and in socially distanced ways, we will make computer labs available on both of our campuses. While I commend the Tutoring Center for the excellent work that they have done virtually during the pandemic. We are at least open to considering face-to-face tutoring options, and we will be talking with the leadership of the tutoring center. We will be spending a lot of time talking with Elena and her peers about what their needs are, and we will be announcing a safe and hopefully community serving decision about those matters early next week.
This is for the upcoming fall semester. Are you guys going to stay with virtual learning, or I guess it's mostly virtual learning because you have some exceptions, but are you going to stay with mostly virtual learning in spring semester as well?
Ryan, it's too soon for us to make that determination. The reason that we made this determination now is to give our faculty, staff, and students more time to prepare so that they're not just shooting in the dark and wondering what's going to happen. We will, however, evaluate that closer to the start of the spring semester. I grant you there is no one in the sound of my voice today who would like better to go and fling the front doors open of our facilities and welcome everybody back for face-to-face instruction. And the moment that we consider it safe to do that, we will do so. We will have to make and announce closer to the start of the spring semester what our plans for instruction will be for the spring.
Okay, we have a variety of other questions coming in. A lot of those are relating to what kind of exceptions can we expect in classes? Will these be with tech programs and labs? What about computer science? Do you have anything that you can tell about what classes may be able to meet in person?
I can't make you a list today because I don't need to sit in my office and make that list. I need to have that conversation with all of you as a community, and we will start very quickly next week having that conversation. I expect Provost Crumbaker will lead a great deal of that conversation. I can tell you that I recognize that a number of our programs, the technical programs in particular, cannot really fulfill their mission to our students without meeting in a limited way face-to-face. And I can tell you that I'm very proud of what they've been able to do in a socially distanced way during summer school. I anticipate that we will build on what we did, which was very limited hands-on instruction in summer school, and that we will do more of it in the fall. And I invite any of you to make a case for any program that you think needs to have a face-to-face component to it. And I will promise you this much: I will hear the case that you make with an open mind. I will make all of the decisions that I make ultimately through the lens of public health first, but we will want to make the best experience that we possibly can for our students, faculty, and staff. And we'll begin very specific conversations about which programs that will include on Monday.
Do you have any estimates? I know you can't list all the programs, but I don't know the breakdown at your institution of how many are bachelor's degree, 4-year programs, and how many are 2-year programs, and how many could be considered, as you used the word before, technical. Do you know whether it's going to be as large as, 25% of your programs are still going to be having in-person instruction? Do you know if it's 50%? Do you know how substantial this exemption will be that will be continuing in person?
I can tell you that we will follow guidance that we receive from the governor and the chancellor if we receive such guidance, and we'll stick to whatever we are told in that regard. If we are left to our own devices, I can tell you that it will be minimal. I will approve face-to-face instruction for those programs that I judge cannot reasonably be conducted in another manner. Those programs that I judge can reasonably be conducted in another manner will remain online. I can't give you a percentage. Provost Crumbaker, are you in a better position to address the question about the number of programs that fit into each of those categories?
Yeah, a lot of our programs are designated as technical. I would say probably 25% is a reasonable estimate of the number of students that are enrolled in our technical programs. Maybe as much as 35% are in those, with the hands-on components and the ones that would absolutely have to, or at least, to a significant extent need to have hands-on component being a smaller portion of those.
I would add to that that I expect it to be a significantly smaller portion than that.
All right, we have a variety of questions coming in. So not long ago, WVUP began bringing staff and faculty back into the facilities. Will they now return to working from home?
We will continue to have staff in the facilities as long as we judge that the trajectory of the pandemic will allow that, because we think it's important for our students to be able to come in a socially distanced by appointment way, to be advised and to be registered for classes and all of the things that they need. So to the degree that we judge that it is safe, we will continue to have staff in the building. I do anticipate that we will probably slow the phased reopening somewhat, and some people will continue to work remotely. And probably what we will go to is even more of a model of staggered shifts, where the facilities are covered with all of the frontline needs at all times when they are open. But most people will probably be working a schedule which is partly remote and partly face-to-face. The whole point of this is to have as many people in the facilities as we must in order to serve the purposes of the university, but to have as few people in the facilities as we can at any given time to offer the maximum protection from the virus.
Excuse me, President Gilmer, could I add something, please?
Yes, Alan.
I think it's really important for students to understand that we are open and we are here to help you with your questions about admission, advising, or financial aid. But we still are offering you the option to take care of these issues by Zoom meetings if you're not comfortable coming out to the campus. And we would encourage anybody who has the ability to take care of this through Zoom to continue to do so. We'll be here to answer the phones, and we can get a counselor or an advisor or whoever you need to talk to set up with a Zoom session as quickly as possible. That obviously limits the number of individual contacts that we have to have, but we will be able to provide the services in either way. So I just want to make sure everyone understood that.
Thank you, Alice.
We do have questions about fees and tuition. For example, will online students still be charged parking fees, and do you plan to decrease your tuition?
We don't plan to decrease our tuition because we have one of the lowest tuitions in the state already, and that stands for both our associate and our bachelor's programs and for our tuition. And it is a myth that it costs less money to provide high quality technology enabled learning. In fact, it often requires more effort on the part of the faculty members and the student, and it often requires more expense instead of less expense. So we chose, even though we were approved for a 5% tuition increase this year, not to increase tuition in any way, because we felt the pandemic had placed a sufficient burden on our students already, and we didn't want to add to that burden. So we feel that we have very fairly, and probably more than fairly, provided a very favorable tuition rates for our students. And as you know, we have the same in-state rate for both West Virginia and Ohio students. As far as parking fees, I believe that the parking fees, while they may be named that, actually fund a great deal more than just parking. So we will take that under consideration, and we'll give you a decision about that soon. And as part of that decision, we'll give you a thorough explanation of what is paid for by those fees.
There's several questions related to access as well. One would be faculty wondering if they'll be able to have access to their office, and then student teachers wanting to know if they're going to have access to be able to go in and fulfill that role, and nursing students wanting to know if they will have access to clinicals.
Faculty will have access not only to their offices, but they will have access to the Zoom rooms and other things that are on our campus that allow you to provide, the amazing instruction that you provided under bad circumstances before. We want to give you the best of the tools that we have to be able to work. So in the same kind of socially distanced, protocol following way that other people have access to campus, faculty will have access to campus. the public schools will have a great deal to say about whether our student teachers will be able to go out and fulfill their student teaching opportunities. And I will have very little input and no control over what it is that the public schools decide. And the same being said for the nurses. I will have very little control over what the hospitals and the other clinical sites decide. I will tell you, and you don't need me to, in the beginning of this pandemic, I pretty much closed down everything and wasn't open to a lot of conversation about sending people out into harm's way. I'm still not ever going to be a president who allows students to be required to put themselves into harm's way. And we will provide online technology enhanced options for those students who are more comfortable with those options. But for those students, and I regard students as adults who make the decision that they want to go out and fulfill those requirements in that way, then I will be willing to entertain those conversations for the fall semester.
Okay, here's a question, and some of them are coming from faculty and some from students. So Chad, you may have to help answer this one too, but will faculty be looking at synchronous or asynchronous delivery of courses? Will it be up to the faculty to decide how they are teaching? And then some faculty are asking, will they be able to expand Zoom beyond 40 minutes? Will there be other softwares? Will there be other things that they can utilize?
I'll start, and Chad, you can jump in if you like to. In general, the answer to that question is yes. We're going to practice a faculty empowerment model to the degree that we possibly can to get you the tools that you need. If you tell us that you need Zoom to be able to last for more than 40 minutes, I'm going to try to figure out what we can do to get you the Zoom licenses that you need to make that possible. I believe in shared governance. I have always believed that the curriculum and the pedagogy of an institution largely belong to the faculty. I am a teaching president, and I don't want anybody to tell me how to teach my class, so I'm not going to presume to tell you how to teach yours. I will tell you the practices that I think are best and share those with you, and I'm sure the provost will as well. But largely the faculty will have a great deal of autonomy in making those decisions. I promised Elena and our students on your behalf that you will listen to the students and be responsive to the ways in which they tell you that they're most comfortable learning in a technology-enabled environment. And I will begin facilitating some of those conversations between those two groups next week to make sure that the student voice is reflected. But largely, we will leave that to the discretion of the faculty. And I will ask the provost to add to that anything that he might like.
Yes, I agree with what Dr. Gilmer said with regard to the flexibility to the faculty. I think we have to always remember the students signed up for particular types of course delivery methods, largely based on what they believe is their best learning style. So we always have to keep that in mind. And as we talk about synchronous versus asynchronous and how those course deliveries work, we really have to look on what is it that we intend the students to learn at the end of our class. If we focus on what the goal is of the course, the outcomes, the learning outcomes, then it enables us to look at technology and see how we can provide to students the things that they were after and that we know that they need to have in order to be successful in their college career, in their professional careers, and in their lives.
If any of the questions are born on a statement that you heard me make a week ago, we lived in a different world. A couple of days after I made that statement is the day that West Virginia had the highest incidence of transmission of any state in the union. We were headed toward a semester in which we practiced hybrid instruction, and we had face-to-face learning much more widespread on our campuses, but the world changed. And the one thing that I felt I could offer you that I've heard you ask for is for it not to be a moving target anymore, for you to have a straight answer about how it was that we were going to teach and learn and that it wasn't going to change. Since I did not know and do not know what the trajectory of the pandemic is going to be, technology-enabled instruction is the only straight answer that I can give you.
There's also a lot of concern about the ACT that we normally hold in September, and wondering if that will be able to be held because there's no other space in this area where they usually do it. We're the main testing center for that.
I don't know is the fair answer to that question. At the moment, the governor has reduced gatherings to 25 people. And frankly, I'm not comfortable even with gatherings of 25 people. If we can find ways to do such things as that in small groups, we do recognize our service responsibility to the community, and we want to fulfill as much of that responsibility as we can. So we will entertain those options, and we will look for ways to be able to say yes to gatherings, not just the ACT, but all gatherings in the fall. We will look for safe and medically responsible ways to be able to say yes. But I'm going to tell you the truth. And the truth is we will also reserve the right to say no to those things that we do not feel are medically responsible, because I'll just reiterate once more, all of these considerations are important, but none of them are as important as the health and safety of the community.
Okay, there's also been several comments in particular about the recording of the recording of lectures by faculty, and if those are able to be recorded and then kept for students to watch later.
I believe the answer to that question is yes, but I'm going to ask Chad to address it.
Yes, Zoom enables recording, and we'll have to, in large part, leave that to the faculty about how they think that they can deliver the content to students. So the technology is available. It's part of Zoom already.
Okay, some students are also saying that they had to move out of state as a result of life situations right now. So I would suggest that those students go ahead and contact us individually about their specific situation. And some are saying that they were charged for the use of a science lab. So again, some individual situations where they may want to just contact the institution. However, bookstore access is another big question. How can they get their books and when?
I will say this, and Alice, you may feel free to add to it anything that you like. We do invite every individual situation that a student might have had to be brought to our attention. If the situation has a financial component to it, feel free to bring it to my attention, but I would invite you to bring it to Alice's attention as well, because frankly, that's probably what I'm going to do when you bring it to mine. I will tell you, however, we will err on the side of being as fair as we possibly can to our students in all of these ways. We always do, and we will enhance that practice even more related to fees, related to out-of-state tuition for people who might have had to move out of state because of the pandemic. We will evaluate these things on a case-by-case basis with an effort to be bending over backward fair to students in every way, because you're the reason that we're here. There's no point for us otherwise. As far as the bookstore, I believe EVP Harris and I have made the determination that it will reopen on August the 3rd for physical engagement with students, but I believe there are already virtual ways that students can get their textbooks. And Alice, is there anything more that you can say about that?
I would just add, President Gilmer, that yes, the plan is to open the bookstore for students to actually come and visit. There will be limited access in terms of the number of students that are allowed in the store at any single time. Of course, we would expect that you would get your temperature checked, and also that you would be wearing a mask when you come to the bookstore. Those students who want to place orders online, you can do so by accessing the link in OSIS. If you have questions about that, reach out to us and we'll provide those links to you. In fact, on Monday will send out an email to all students to provide that link so you have it available to you. I think that's it.
Thank you, Alice.
We have questions about the Ascend Summer Institute and if that will be continuing.
It will be continuing, and I'll let the provost give you the specifics.
We're working on the particular model about how we will deliver it, but we will be doing it. It'll be, I believe it's the August 5th and 6th is that first week of August is when it will be, and how it will be delivered. We're still in the process of determining, but we'll give you plenty of heads up about what that looks like. Please go ahead. You should receive in the next couple of days, if you haven't already, the flyer about saving the date for those and the times generally and how to register for those times. And then we will work out with you individually how, or the groups based on what times they'll be and where they'll be located or how we'll be delivering the Institute.
Thank you, Chad.
While you're there, some of the faculty are asking how they will have access to computer labs or other equipment. So
I think it's still being determined. What I would invite you to do is tell us how you need access to computer labs and equipment. And to the degree that we can, we will accommodate what you tell us that you need. Left to our own devices, we may come up with ideas and policies that aren't necessarily the best for meeting your needs. So I would invite you to work through Chad to let him know what your needs and access are, and to the greatest degree that we possibly can, we will amend our plans to meet them.
we have a student who's specifically stating what classes that she is taking for the fall and wondering, since those were planned for online, if she has to do anything to change. They were planned for face-to-face. Does she have to do anything to change those to online?
I don't think they have to do anything, but Chad, I will let you answer that more specifically.
No, there won't be any need to change your schedule or anything like that. Actually, the best thing to do is to stay in that class at this point, not to make any changes. And then we can do that on our end. We may not actually change the name of it to an online, but we'll make it indicate when you'll be required to do certain things. That will be changed, but you don't need to do anything as students.
Thank you.
Will decisions about labs and the courses that will be able to have some face-to-face be made before tuition is due?
Yes, I think is the answer to that question. Alice, do you have anything to add about the timeline for when tuition is due?
Yeah, actually, tuition was originally scheduled to be due this coming Friday. And I've made a determination that we should extend that to August the 7th, which is the Friday, the two Fridays before we start classes. So, and for those students who need a little bit more time, all you need to do is email me and we can try to work out some different arrangements for you.
So we will certainly be able to notify the community well in advance of August the 7th, which classes will be able to have some face-to-face component and which will not. We will also, I think, work to extend our registration for classes deadline as long as we can, and our drop deadlines as long as we can, and things of that nature. We're going to create the most flexible system for our students that we have the capacity to create.
How will faculty administer their office hours this fall?
I don't know that we know the answer to that question yet. And again, I know I am being repetitious, but I would most sincerely invite you to tell us what you think is the best answer. And then hopefully we can work through a process of making that determination together. What would you add to that, Chad?
Yeah, that what you said next is where we were thinking. We will work on. I think it would be great to hear opinions about how that can work and how we would accomplish that. Share those things among other proposals with your chairs, so that we can organize that and really have a good thought about how to plan.
And do it as quickly as you reasonably can. All of the input that I am seeking is most sincere and will be listened to and duly considered, but we need to get the input sooner rather than later so that we will be able to put all of our governing protocols in place.
Okay, some other questions from faculty. They would like to know how they're going to sign their contracts. They would like to know how they can access their offices on an easier protocol. And will they be provided with tools and software and training on monitoring of online exams?
As far as access goes, we will be evaluating again on Monday. I realize that we've had pretty much a lockdown, and I don't know, frankly, today how much we're going to relent on that. It's important that we control the flow of people coming into the facilities. We have no desire to keep people out of the facility. Trust me, nobody more than me enjoys standing at the door and seeing all of you when you come in. If we can come up with easier ways to bring people into the facility that we consider to be responsible to public health, we will do that. We hope that there may come a time when we feel like we can unlock the doors and allow people to have more free access. Controlled access is at least access, and I hope that you will see that as an improvement. And it's the best that I have to offer today, though we will work with you in every way that we can to make it as easy as possible. And I think the rest of that question might be better suited for the provost.
Sorry, I blanked on what the second part of that question was.
They were asking about software and training. There's several comments from faculty about wanting training on videos and informational copyright and handling situations when they put things online.
Yes, absolutely. So keep working with the Center for Instructional Innovation. There's been a lot of different seminars out, a lot of training sessions. They're available by appointment. If you make those requests through your chairs that will get to me about the specific items that you want to have, we will certainly put together training proposals and put those things out for you to know. The testing software, the proctoring exams, we're looking into resources for that. We understand that some big providers are looking at those particular things. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that there's any magical solution to the proctoring thing. There's no software or a program or some vendor you can go to that will give you exactly probably what you think you can get. Unfortunately, so we're keeping to work on that and trying to find out the best opportunities. What I would suggest is, though, talk to your chairs about the particular needs that you're talking about. What are your concerns within that, so that we can look at the specific needs we're trying to address with testing.
None of us lives under the delusion that any of this is ideal. There is nothing that is ideal about a pandemic. But if you will help us to understand your needs to the very best degree possible, we will do what we can to meet them.
A student is asking, for those who are going online, will we check in at the time our classes are scheduled for, or would we have the whole day to work on an assignment?
I think that will largely be left to the discretion of the faculty, though I am going to facilitate discussions, as I mentioned earlier, between students and faculty for students to have the opportunity to let all of you know what works better for them. And while I know that you want to uphold the academic integrity of your classes, and I certainly want you to do that as well, I would expect that you want to do that in a way that makes them the most accessible for the students as well. So I would say the final discretion for that will probably lie with the faculty, informed by a good deal of student input.
In hopes that numbers decrease over the next month, would this change the decision of a virtual fall?
There is not a human alive that would like to go out and unlock the doors and fling them wide more than I would. It is much easier for us to move from technology-enabled instruction to a face-to-face than it would be for us to move in the other direction. And you don't need me to tell you that, because you all masterfully had to figure out how to do it in a week's time. So, yes. I am very hopeful that we will see an improvement in this pandemic, but hopeful doesn't mean that I expect it to be the case in the near term, frankly. But if it is the case in the near term and it seems responsive to public health, then we will all joyfully come together again in a face-to-face manner. And I think it would be fairly easy to shift from the model that we're announcing today to that model.
We're still having some questions that are coming in about the HESI. Some folks say that they are at risk for immune deficiency issues, and they're wanting to know if there's other alternatives for the HESI and also the Praxis. So a lot of questions still coming about testing.
Can you answer any of those questions, Chad, or is the answer that we need to regroup with the faculty and the testing center and get some guidelines about that out early next week?
Yeah, I think the first part of what you just said is key. We have to work with those providers about what creates proctoring, what makes a good proctoring. And typically we're a proctoring site because we do it face to face. When it goes to a technology remote situation, the proctoring becomes different. It's not our test. So we have to kind of follow those guidelines that are provided by the HESI examiners and the Praxis examiners in order to make sure that we can do proctoring, or if they've already have another secondary provider that they are using for those things. So we'll have to work out those details about what those can look like. And we'll do that as soon as we can.
I think that's an important distinction for everybody to understand. While some of those standardized national tests are required in some of our programs, while our accreditation requires us to require them as components of some of our programs, we do not administer the makeup, the design, and the protocols for those tests on a local level. We really are largely at the mercy of the national test providers and administrators, but we will advocate for you in every way that we can, and to the degree that we can make local decisions that are in your best interest, we will certainly do that.
Is work study still going to be available for students?
Yes, work study is still going to be available for students. Precisely what form it will take, I don't know yet, but certainly work study is going to be available for students. Alice, would you add anything to that? No. Yes is the answer.
Do you have any plans to alter the timeline for the fall semester? Will it start later or will it finish earlier?
We might have considered that when we were looking for more face-to-face instruction. I don't think that there will be any need to change the calendar and the timeline based upon moving to the technology-enabled instruction. So classes will still start on the time that they are expected. It's not unconceivable that we would shorten the semester slightly at the end. Some residential institutions have already made the decision to finish the semester just before the Thanksgiving break. And we've got plenty of time between now and then to make those decisions, and we will make them and announce them with a great deal of lead time. But I think the move to technology-enabled instruction diminishes greatly the need to consider revising the academic calendar.
So
the bookstore opens on August 3rd. I'm sorry, Ryan, let me just finish this one. Will they need to make an appointment, or will they just call in? How will they be able to know they can go to the bookstore?
The bookstore will open in a face-to-face way on August the 3rd. As Alice pointed out, it's already open for serving in an online way. I think we'll have to see how much demand we have before we will know whether appointments are necessary. I think we could create a circumstance in which if you know that you want to come at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, you could make an appointment for 10 o'clock on Tuesday and not have to wait. If, however, we won't really know if large groups of students are going to be showing up to want to use the bookstore at one time or not. So at the moment, I would say take a chance, but you might have to wait a little while. I don't think it would be a long time if there were a long queue of students wanting to use the bookstore face-to-face. If you don't want to wait, I think that we can come up with a protocol where you can make an appointment for a specific time.
This is Ryan Quinn, and I apologize. If you want me to type out my questions, if that works better, I can just do that.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm trying to figure out two things. One is, are you the first college in West Virginia that you're aware of to announce that you're going to mostly virtual instruction only for the upcoming fall? Are you the first college you know of to announce such a thing? And then also, you're not changing the start date of classes, correct? And if so, when is that start date?
We're not changing the start date of classes at a local level, and I believe, Chad, the start date is August the 17th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. We will, as I said earlier, follow guidance that comes from the governor or the chancellor. If they were to change the start date for instruction, obviously we would follow their lead. We are not making this decision based on the decisions that any other colleges or universities in the state are making. We're making what we think is the best local decision for all of the people that we serve. So we did not consider as a part of that decision comparing it to what other institutions in the state are doing. And I'm not in a position to say with certainty what choices any other institutions in the state might have made or might make in future.
The library is also being asked, will it be available for any in-person use?
To be determined. Many of our library resources, as you already know, are available to students virtually, and I think that will be one of the things that we're evaluating very early next week, and then we'll be getting back to you on in short order. Chad, would you add anything to that? No.
I would just say that those students that typically use the library for to access a computer or to access the internet will be able to do so in one of our computer labs.
Thank you, Alice. That's a very important point. We have heard your pain, and we do not want to add to it. And we know that remote internet access is a problem, and we're going to do everything that we can reasonably do to mitigate that problem for you by making our labs available.
We don't have any other questions that we haven't addressed in some way right now at this point in time, but I would remind that we do put out a blue and gold post weekly that has a lot of updates and resources, and encourage students and faculty and staff to all check their email regularly for updates, because many updates will be coming that way.
Yes, and you will also be getting epic length emails from me. I wouldn't want to disappoint in any way. You know, whether you choose to read them all the way to the end or not is your decision. You know how to find me. I don't hide. So any questions that you have further, you can ask of me or any member of the administration. We will try to answer them as forthrightly as we can in a timely manner. We will consider all of the input that's provided to us. And I'll end our conversation today by saying that I'm not the only one who was called to the kingdom of West Virginia University at Parkersburg for such a time as this. We were all called to this kingdom for such a time as this. And I admire what you have done with that call to date, and I have absolute confidence in what you will do with it in the future. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in one form or another very soon. Have a great day. Have a safe weekend.